infrastructure on our team, and it's been quite a process getting this all built out, but we're really happy with how it's all come together, and I'm really excited for everyone to be able to use this and kind of delve in and be able to use a pretty cool space to hopefully bolster a bit of the workload that you have with ArcGIS and Adobe overall. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just show you basically, if you hadn't seen the email that we kind of sent out with basic instructions, I'll show you essentially what you'll probably see on your desktops. So let me get this shared out real quick and let me know if you guys can see all of this. Should just be a plain desktop here.
Yep, good to go.
Okay, awesome. So for most, you'll all have a little bit of a pinned taskbar icon. You'll see it down here. It'll be called Remote Desktop. If you don't see that on your end, what you can do is just go to your apps, type in Remote Desktop, and you should see the app there, and feel free to pin it to your taskbar. When you open it up, what you'll see is a window like this. It should just have one thing in it saying AVD Workspace and then Pool A. Pool A is the name of the actual virtual machine that you guys will all be logging into to access all of your profiles, GIS, things of that sort. All you'll need to do from how we configured it is you'll just double click on this icon and it will bring up a quick loading screen telling you that's configuring the session, and you'll essentially be opened up into a page that's somewhat similar to this. This one's a little bit more of like the kind of test development side of things. So you'll have like a much prettier background and things of that degree. But at the bottom, you'll see some basic apps that you'll have. You should see Teams, Outlook, ArcGIS Pro, things of that sort, all listed there. And for users that are more going to be using it for Adobe, if that actually becomes the case, we have the entire suite here kind of already installed. And we have InDesign, Illustrator, Lightroom, all the things there. The biggest thing is if you want to use any of those applications, you will need to have your Adobe credentials to sign in so that it actually can license those. There is one account that I am aware of that was on the hotel PC originally that we can use to sign in, but I'm not sure how many licensed seats that's available for. And I know that some users have their own credentials, or so it's a little sporadic in terms of what the licensing can look like on that end. But the second that you get it licensed, you'll have access to this full kind of suite here. Additionally, you'll just see your basic Office applications. So if you want to use them here in the pool, you can. We've got OneDrive, Outlook, PowerPoint, Word, all of that good stuff. And you'll notice that if you go into your file explorers, you'll see that you have, you won't see it in this one, but you'll see the shared files, SharePoint synced down on the left. And so you can access anything that you would locally on your machine here. Additionally, you should see this, you'll have Teams as well. So if you need to do any sort of communications within that environment, you're more than welcome to. But that should essentially be all of the things that are kind of included in this platform. For ArcGIS, to be more specific, you also have access to ArcGIS Pro, which is kind of like the online format for everything. And then you have ArcGlobe, ArcMap, and Scene all readily available here for you to use. I believe Nick and I will be having a kind of a conversation with Ruth to go over how you guys will be using these applications and what the integration will be with Arc Pro and the sort there, but we don't really have to go over that in this meeting. What we really want to go through is just kinds of the do's and don'ts of using this environment itself. The biggest thing here is your guys's accounts are all separate profiles, and so imagine that you have your own container filled with all of your information, and it's being plugged into this virtual machine. So everything is separate and stored elsewhere in terms of your personal data. So if anything were to happen, we can always restore and kind of pull things and replace them. But things that are not very replaceable or they don't work in the same way as retrieving data and putting it into the system is the actual program files, program data, and things of that sort. And so what that really means here is in this environment, you do not want to install any applications. If you install any applications, what it's going to do is it's actually going to not just install for you on your side, but it's going to pop up for everybody whenever they log in. So say somebody were to download Spotify here, well, everybody would see Spotify when they log in now because that's program side and it's written directly to the virtual machine itself, and it's not something specific to your profile container. So one of the biggest things is you do not want to install any applications or anything like that in this environment. You want to keep it as bare bones and like into what's already installed here in our programs. That does not mean that we can't install applications for you. What we can actually do is we can roll them out to individuals or in mass if need be. But the biggest point is we want to make sure that people aren't installing and uninstalling applications from this environment. It affects everyone and makes it a little bit more difficult for us to manage. And then we'd have to go system to system to remove things, and it can get a little complicated. So that's the first big thing here. The second one is when it comes to any form of updates on the machine, this kind of steps back into, since this is a shared environment, say you were to go into your settings and let's just say Windows updates. You might see some Windows updates here, and they're actually set to not install automatically or at all. And I'll be getting a group policy in place to where it won't even tell you what's going on here. But this is a great example is something like this. If you were to get a notification in any form asking you to update this process, you definitely don't want to do that because that starts to change up a lot of the kind of back end of how things talk together. And we want to make sure that it's as similar to what the initial setup was so that there's no issues. So a big thing here is just to not do any form of Windows updates, system updates, driver updates, any type of update that you can think of. And that also applies to your applications as well. So if Google Chrome is requesting an update, I would stay away from doing that. Everything in this environment is set to not update, but there is still, if there's manual input from a user to update the application or whatever thing you're working on, it'll do that update and it will actually apply to everybody outside of just your profile container. So we want to make sure that that's not something that's done. Let's see. You do have a lot of control though outside of those things. You can change kind of your backgrounds, do all that thing. If you want to set pins and make the environment look specific, those things will not affect other users. So some minor customization can definitely be there to hopefully, make your workflow seem a little bit more common for yourself. But those are kind of the big things that we want to avoid is updating anything system level and application side, and then B, uninstalling or installing applications that are not already within the system itself. Now, a big thing is you do not want to play in the Windows files at all. We keep this access here just so if we need to come in and do something, we can kind of help out without having to do full redeployments of the server to make changes for you guys. But essentially, you don't really need to hang out in this side of things at all. Yeah, I think that's about it for our kind of big do's and don'ts. Do we have any questions so far just on what we've kind of covered or anything of that degree? It looks like Nick, what do you got going on?
Yeah, so I have my window pulled up to show ArcMap and how folks access their data and MXGs. I think folks are probably interested in that part too. So as soon as you're wrapped up with your part, or if people have questions, I can share my screen.
Yeah, that would be great, actually. I was hoping that we could do that through your computer as well, so you beat me to the punch there. But yeah, if anyone has any general things just with how to use this or accessing it or anything of the like, I'm happy to answer. The do's and don'ts are, they're very small amount of them, but you don't really want to come into here thinking like it's a personal computer. You want to really kind of leave this environment as pristine as possible, and that'll just make it easier for yourself to just come into this space, use it for what it's needed, and then exit and leave whenever. A big point to make here is there's two methods of actually leaving the environment. What you can do is you'll have an X at the top of your screen. It'll probably be a white bar instead of this blue bar I have here. But if you click the X at the top, what that's actually going to do is it's just going to disconnect you from the session. So say you had Google Chrome up and some work that you were doing here, and you were going to lunch. What you could do is you could just click on the X up here. It would close you out. You could lock your computer. And then when you reopen up the system, you would actually come right back to the work that you have here. There would not be any changes or anything of that degree, and you could pick up right where you left off. What you want to do at the end of your day, though, once you're finished in the environment and you want to kind of close up shop, you want to make sure that you're actually going to the start menu at the bottom left and then signing out from the environment. What that does is it packs up your container full of all your information and things. It closes a lot of the services that are running to make a lot of the things happen here, and it kind of neatly puts everything away so that the next time you get on, it can spin on. It's essentially like shutting down the computer and making sure that all the things are kind of wrapped up nicely. A big point there is that's when you're actually signing out, you are not using any more resources. So you want to kind of make sure that you're not leaving this on overnight by just clicking the X up here. I do see, if it makes it a lot easier to where you could just, keep clicking the X and then picking up the next day where you kind of left off. But in the back end, there's the resources that you're actually using, the CPU space, the RAM, all that stuff that's kind of still going on. You want to make sure that that's actually getting closed off so that at the end of the month, you're not getting billed just for an allocated amount of time that you guys aren't really using it. So just to recap, if you're just going to lunch or just are out of the environment for a little bit, you can feel free to click the X at the top right, and then you would use the remote desktop app that we have here and just click back into it. You'll pick up where you left off. But if you're done for the day, make sure that you're signing out and actually closing out the whole environment. But I do believe that's all I have. So Nick, if anyone else has any questions, feel free to pop a hand up. But Nick, feel free to steal the screen here, and we can kind of follow along with you there.
Okay, thanks, Raj.
Of course.
Yeah, just give me a second. Okay. Can everybody see that okay?
Yep, it's looking good on mine.
Okay, good. All right, so y'all already know that we, AMS moved all of our Server 1 files over to SharePoint. But with our GIS files, they actually live somewhere else. So it used to be the case that in our server, you would scroll down to the GIS folder, and that's where all of our data, all of our maps lived. AMS has now set it up such that it lives on a separate drive called GIS or G:, right here. And the folder structure is exactly the same. So data from partners, the own data that we've created here at PCD, our projects and our MXD maps here. It's all been preserved and has stayed the same. And then as far as accessing that data in ArcMap, the workflow is exactly the same for ArcGIS Pro for those folks that use that, but you open your catalog, and probably the easiest way to access that data is to connect to the folder. So on the right hand of the screen, you're going to see folder connections. You're going to right click, connect to folder, and you're going to scroll down to this PC. And then you're going to see the GIS drive here, and click that, and then OK. And then in the future, that data is always going to live there. I'm just going to pull in an example data set from Harvest, for example. And the data that you're going to access, each program has its own geodatabase, which is basically just a storage container where their data lives. And where that lives is GIS data PCD, and then your program, and then this folder called SDE. And then there's going to be a little gray cylinder here with an X, a little red X, if you can see that. So with Harvest, I'm going to double click that to establish a connection, and that red X should disappear. You hit the plus sign next to that, and it shows all of the data that's available. So the only thing left that I have to do is I have to click and drag that into the map, and then it appears. If you have a map, an MXD document that you already created, and you open that, many of those links are going to be broken, and it's going to show a little red exclamation mark next to that. To get around that, you can either right click and go to properties and then source, and you can set the data source and navigate to the new GIS folder here and click through it that way. Or you could remove that connection and then click and drag the data set over into that, and then just hit save. And that should be it.
Now, for users that might be following along, currently only 2 users have the GIS actual file location mapped to their file explorers currently. So if you will be using the applications outside of ArcGIS Pro, then please let us know so that we can actually map that for you and get that so that you can kind of follow the steps that he just mentioned previously. We have it just set up in that way so that not every user has to have it set up, and it just makes it a little bit easier for us to manage, but we just want to make sure that whatever workflow you're choosing to go with, then we can make sure that you have access to it in the correct way. So
yeah, let's just check in again on that, Raj, and once I talk with Ruth as well. But most consistent, at least for the moment, most folks use ArcMap, and they'll be transitioning slowly to GIS Pro. And so it's probably going to be the case that most folks will need that their new machines or new accounts mapped to that GIS drive.
and that's totally fine. There is a way that we can push that out on like kind of a global level, but yeah, like you said,
Yeah,
we can
thumbs
connect
up
on
to
that.
that. Yeah, thumbs up to that. I think right off the bat we could do that.
Roger that. That sounds good to me. But I guess to close out, does anybody have any kind of major questions or any kind of things that they have concerns of, or just want to know a little bit more about how things work, or is everyone feeling semi-comfortable with kind of the new environment and kind of what it has to provide for you guys? I'll take the
sounds-
silence as a no.
I just have a quick question. If just to clarify, if it's been a while since we used an Esri mapping product, and I previously used ArcMap, should I just jump in with GIS Pro? Because I'm gonna have to kind of relearn a lot of it anyway. So it sounds like that's where things are going, and that's best.
Correct.
Oh.
Yeah. So Esri has signaled that I think by 2025 they will no longer be supporting ArcMap. So they'll be basically saying like they're going to retire that system because they're pushing everybody over to GIS Pro. So like at the moment, it isn't super urgent that you switch over, but Ruth and Justin and I will be working slowly to transition the whole office to GIS Pro for the next year to 2 years.
Right. Okay. Thank you. That's what I thought. But
Yeah.
I'll say goodbye to my ArcMap projects.
Yeah.
Slowly.
Yeah.
Could you show us one more time how to connect to the GIS like you did originally?
Go to
This will be recorded, Paul.
Okay,
So I will
so-
send out the recording after.
Okay, great. That's right.
Mhm.
any other questions? Taylor, do you have any other kind of closing statements for them?
No, just that AMS is here. Let us know. I know that you guys have your own individual workflows within GIS and things like that we might not know the complete ins and outs. But if there's something functional or access that you need, just put in a ticket. We're still prioritizing any of the tickets that come off the project to make sure you guys are taken care of and up and running. And then, like Raj said, just remember this is a pooled environment. So the major program changes and things that you do affects everybody. The files that you see, they're on a shared drive for the GIS that you'll have access to. So you'll all see the changes you make. But again, the stuff that's on your desktop is personal to you outside of the programs and those files that you have. But otherwise, this is mostly to just be focusing on GIS and Adobe using and working there. Otherwise, all your other work is done on the local side of your computers and your SharePoint, your OneDrive that you guys have outside of it. So this is really just for those main applications to do the work within the environment for that. And this is the last hurdle, guys. We're done. It's
Yeah.
so this is
I think I think I can speak up for all of us when I say that we are glad this is finally up and running, but also really thankful for all the hard work you put in.
We appreciate you guys too and all the patience and grace. We know it's not an easy transition for anybody, so we're glad we're able to weather the storm together and we're ready to see it to the end, but there shouldn't be any more rugs pulled up from underneath you guys, and we should be leveling things out now.
Thank you very much for all of your hard work.
Yes. And Mary, that's a question. It looks like, can more than one user be on pool A at a time? Yes, you guys could technically all log into the pool at the same time if you wanted to, although we kind of slated it and built the resources around it being, more like 5 to 10 users concurrently. I think that's all the questions, you guys.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks,
you.
Raj.
Of course.
Thanks, Taylor.
Thanks,
Have a good
all.
one, and thank you guys for the time.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.